At 80, I think about the life we lived for our kids. A quiet kitchen, morning light, a cup of coffee going cold, an old man's hands wrapped around the mug. I am 80 years old, and last Tuesday, sitting alone at this kitchen table, I realized something that broke me quietly. My wife and I never once asked each other, what do we want? 55 years, 3 children, 11 grandchildren. One beautiful, exhausting, devoted life. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, we forgot we were people first. I want to tell you something that doesn't get said at retirement parties or family dinners or in the speeches people give at funerals. It doesn't get said because it sounds ungrateful, and we were anything but ungrateful. But here it is. When you spend your whole life living for your children, you don't always notice what you're spending. I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about sleep or weekends or the career you slowed down to be home by 6. I'm talking about something quieter than that. I'm talking about the slow, invisible shrinking of the person you were before you became somebody's parent. My name is not important. What I lived, that might be. My wife, Nadia, and I married when we were 24. She wanted to be a painter, not a hobbyist, a real painter. She had a sketchbook she carried everywhere, and her lines had something in them that I didn't have words for then. I just knew it was rare. I wanted to travel, not tourism. I wanted to move through the world slowly, by sea if I could. I wanted to feel small against the ocean and understand what that meant. We had 14 months together before our first child arrived. 14 months. And then, with all the love in the world, with every good intention 2 young people can hold, something in us quietly stepped aside. Not disappeared, just moved to the back of the room. And it never really came forward again. Not for a long time. Psychologists have a term for what happens to parents, especially in those first overwhelming years. They call it identity foreclosure. It's when the demands of a role absorb so completely that personal goals don't develop. They simply stop. You don't abandon your dreams dramatically. You just keep saying later until later becomes never. We didn't know that word then. We just lived it. People talk about what parents give up. The sleep, the money, the spontaneous Saturday mornings. But nobody talks about the other things. Nobody talks about the conversations that stopped. Before children, Nadia and I would talk for hours about ideas, about art, about what frightened us and what we hoped for. After children, every conversation, every single one, bent back toward the kids. School, schedules, worries, milestones. We were always talking. We just stopped talking to each other. Nobody talks about the hobby you learned to call selfish. At 35, Nadia found a literature program at a local college. Evening classes, 3 nights a week. She left the brochure on the kitchen table. I looked at it. I said, "The kids need stability right now." She folded it. She never enrolled. I thought I was protecting the family. I was protecting my own fear. Fear of change, fear of disruption, fear that if she grew in a direction I wasn't growing, something between us would crack. I was wrong. And I knew it within a year, and I never said so. Nobody talks about the person your spouse was quietly mourning. Not mourning the children, never that. But mourning the version of herself that had to be put away like a winter coat, stored, preserved, never worn. We had 3 children, and we loved them with everything we had. Our eldest, a son, driven, disciplined, successful in the way the world measures success. He calls on birthdays. He means well. But he doesn't know how to sit still in a room with people he loves. He was raised to be strong. We forgot. I forgot to show him that strength also looks like staying. Our daughter, the middle child, she is warm and generous, and she says yes when she means no, and she has done this her entire life. She learned it from watching us. She watched her mother fold that brochure. She watched her father work late to avoid difficult feelings. She internalized what we did, not what we said. This is the truth that research confirms and that parents rarely accept. Children don't absorb our instructions. They absorb our silences, our patterns, our quiet endurances. Our youngest, by the time he arrived, we were tired. Tired in the way that loosens you. We stopped hovering. We stopped engineering. We let him be confused and bored and figuring it out. He is today the most grounded of the three, the most himself. I don't say this to rank them. I say it because the lesson undid me when I finally saw it. The child we worried about least became the child who needed the least reassurance. Not because we loved him less, because we finally trusted life enough to let him live it. When our youngest left for university, Nadia and I sat at this same table and looked at each other. 30 years of marriage, 3 raised children, and a silence between us that wasn't hostile. It was just wide. We were strangers who loved each other. I reached across and held her hand, and I said, "What do you dream about?" She looked at me for a long moment. Then she cried. She said she couldn't remember. This is documented. It even has a name, empty nest syndrome. But what goes undiscussed is what must happen after. Couples who spent 20-25 years organized entirely around children must renegotiate their marriage from something close to the beginning. Many can't do it, not because they hate each other, but because they no longer know each other. We nearly didn't make it, not through conflict, through quiet disconnection. What saved us was small and stubborn. We started walking together every evening at 6. No destination, no phones, 30 minutes every day. At first, we talked about the children. Then we talked about the neighborhood. Then, slowly, haltingly, we started talking about ourselves, who we were, who we still wanted to be. We were 65 years old, learning each other like 2 people meeting late in life. Because in many ways, we were. I want to be careful here. This is not a list of regrets dressed up as wisdom. This is what I see, clearly, at 80, that I could not see at 40. I wish I had been present without being consumed. There is a difference between giving your children your attention and giving them your entire identity. One raises them. The other quietly teaches them that love requires self-destruction. I wish I had told Nadia to enroll in that literature program. The children were 7 and 4 and 1. They would have survived 3 evenings a week. They would have been fine, better than fine. They would have watched their mother pursue something for herself. That is an education no school can give. I wish I had let my children see me as a man, not just a father. A man with doubts and longings and an old dream about the sea. Children who only see their parents as roles, as functions, grow up confused about what a whole person looks like. And there is Portugal. For 40 years, Nadia and I said we would go to Portugal. Every year, next year. There was always a reason to wait. School fees, work obligations, someone's wedding, someone's birth. Last spring, I finally booked the flights. 2 tickets. June departure. She passed in March. I went alone in June. I carried her photograph in my chest pocket. I sat by the water in Lisbon on a warm evening, and I ordered wine, and I talked to her photograph for an hour. I don't tell you this for sorrow. I tell you this so you understand, with the full weight of it, that later is not a real place. It is the story we tell ourselves so we don't have to be brave right now. If you are in your 30s or 40s, if you are in the thick of it right now, exhausted and devoted and stretched thin, I want to say something directly to you. A parent who has kept one private dream alive is a parent who shows their child that dreams survive hardship. That is worth more than any sacrifice you could make on their behalf. Know them. Keep knowing them. Ask them strange questions. Sit in rooms together doing nothing. Protect the friendship inside the marriage, because when the children leave, the friendship is all that remains. Let them see you fail at something and try again. Let them see you tired but still reading the book you love. Let them see you and your partner laugh at something that has nothing to do with them. That is the real inheritance. Not the house, not the savings. The model of a life fully lived. Nadia finished a painting 8 months before she died. She had started painting again at 72, quietly, in the back room, like someone returning to a language they thought they'd forgotten. She didn't tell anyone at first. She just painted. The last one she completed was a painting of the sea. It hangs in this kitchen now, above the table where the coffee goes cold every morning. I look at it every day, and I think she always knew where she wanted to go. She held that knowing for 50 years, through every school run and every worry and every folded brochure. She held it quietly, and she never let it die completely. She found her way back. We found our way back, to each other, to ourselves, late, imperfectly, beautifully. At 80, I think about the life we lived for our kids, and I truly hope, that somewhere inside it, they also saw the life we lived for each other, even if we found it late, even if we had to find it twice.